Bradley dumped his bag near the front door of his 2 LDK apartment. Somehow, he had managed to arrive at his home out in the western suburbs, where housing was cheap quality and expensive pricing. The rent alone ate 3/4 of his former fortnight's salary. How the hell was he going to explain his job loss to his teenage brother Jace? Especially when his baby brother had worked so hard to gain a spot in a prestigious collegiate out in the Hills district. The day felt like a surreal nightmare. He stumbled to his room and dumped himself down on his single bed. His mind fell into turmoil as he ran through conversations and expressions of disappointment on Jace's face. "Hey big bro, you home?" Bradley heard Jace's voice from the lounge room and buried his head under his pillow. "Big bro." Jace's voice drew near. The door to Bradley's room opened. Bradley heard his brother's long sigh from the doorway. "Let me guess, bad boss finally scolded you." "I don't want to talk about it," Bradley answered, his voice muffled by the pillow over his head. Footsteps approached his bed. He cursed when Jace yanked the pillow away, so he caught sight of his baby brother's face. Unlike himself, Jace was filling out with manly features of a split chin, wide jaw, firm cheekbones, cool brown eyes, and a stylish crop of hair with one side shaved to place focus on his side-swept fringe and spiky tufts toward his right. Also, unlike himself, Jace was no stranger to girls, being in and out of relationships since middle school. He excelled in sports, with his spot as a regular on his new school's soccer team confirmed. To top off the Bradley was not list, Jace's national test scores consistently ranked him within the top 2%. The boy was perfect. Bradley sucked at sports since he had no coordination to chase a ball, finished school just passing, and had no hobby interests. Landing a job as a service desk analyst at MyCom IT had been a surprise and a half. He had questioned whether the company made a mistake and mixed him up with another Bradley James. Regardless, he had seized the opportunity to finally show some spunk as the older adult brother replacing their deceased parents by giving 110% dedication to the job. Doing as many online courses and day certifications as possible to rapidly skill himself up to an asset to the job and assure his employment. He had worked hard for the company for 2 years without fuss. Until his recent promotion as test analyst due to reorganization had landed him with the boss from hell. Now he had no job. "I suck," he moaned. Jace plonked himself down on the bed near Bradley's head. "Cheer up, big bro. Whatever it is, can't be too bad. You still have a job, right?" He patted the pillow that was covering Bradley's face. Bradley gulped nervously as he removed the pillow and gingerly sat up to face his brother. The sight of his brother wearing his school uniform of navy blue long pants and a white short-sleeve shirt bearing the school's official emblem on the shirt's pocket made him feel like a horrible failure. "I sort of got fired today for being late." He fumbled with the grim news. "Dude. Seriously. Go to the ombudsman. With EEO and fair work laws, work can't fire you without warning. Didn't you say your work was good enough to keep you off bad boss's radar?" Jace blurted his facts from a recent school project. He felt certain his brother wouldn't have been the cause for the deed. "Are you sure it wasn't some suspension?" "Employees don't get a suspension, Jace. I got the warning. My contract allows for instant dismissals." Jace groaned with shock. It didn't make sense as for 2 years his brother had been a dedicated employee who was never late until now. Now wasn't the time for further questions. His brother was clearly going through the same disappointment and shock. "I have my part-time job, I can do extra shifts," he suggested. Bradley hated the idea of Jace having to compromise his education to pay bills. He wanted his brother to enjoy his school life. It was what their parents would have wanted if they were alive. His mind went to the undisclosed job that crazy rich guy had forced upon him. If selling his body would pay bills and ensure Jace's happy school life and future, he would do it without complaint. Ouch. He cursed and rubbed the sore spot on his forehead from Jace's finger flick. You're worrying about stupid things, I can see it in your eyes. Bradley sighed. Don't worry about me or bills. You leave the adult stuff to me, and enjoy your schooling. Adult? I'm only 5 years younger, do the cooking and housework. I can pay my way until you get work. No. Bradley firmly answered, that silenced their talk on the matter. Jace rose. He shoved his brother back down to the bed, before storming out of the room with complaints about stubborn, stupid older brothers. Bradley stared at a dirt-stained patch on the ceiling. Was that crazy Masters guy serious about a job to pay back car damages? Was he truly fired? He was trusting a stranger's words, but it didn't seem that the man had a reason to lie. He shuffled off his bed, entered the lounge room for the front door to retrieve his bag for his damaged phone, pulled out the SIM card from the phone carcass, and carried it to the kitchen counter. He placed it in his old phone that had been charging on the counter for days like an emergency bat phone. It was even cased in red like one. His hands and lips trembled when he read his boss's irate messages that increased with emotional phrases, until the 69th one said he was fired. Among the angry messages was some from his senior project manager and best friend, Adam, who expressed concerns for his well-being. Adam was the team's favorite, who had mentored him. Bradley ran all his work through him. The man saved him from speaking to the customer, presenting his work by proxy. The man was a success story, with his on-time project closures and effective testing. Bradley respected him, and felt privileged to count Adam as his only friend. That friendship was now at risk of fading out. He called Adam's number with the decision to trust him with the horrible news. Adam Thornton ended his phone call with an uneven sigh. How the heck did Bradley end up in that bizarre situation? More importantly, the man he supposedly owed was Adrian Masters, CEO of Mycom IT's competitor. He was concerned for the welfare of his friend, who was a nervy introvert, not good at handling conflict or complicated situations. His mind recapped on the first time he met him, and the instant hit of beauty, which shot an arrow to his heart. Bradley was a pretty boy with brown hair and eyes like himself, yet he lacked the confidence to make the most of his looks. Meeting the shy, nervy Bradley was love at first sight for him. His love for the man deepened the more time they spent together as friends. Their friendship was natural and easy, which made Adam more careful not to be his pushy self and come on hard to him. Bradley was his precious one to treasure and protect. This ideal made him reluctant to confess his feelings, fearing rejection. Especially when it was obvious that he was only a best friend from their many interactions. Now he was snatched up by Adrian Masters due to a rotten twist of fate. The thought of his love interest in the arms of another man. It made him frown and his heart feel pain.
Don't take calls from other men when you're in bed with me.
A deep husky voice spoke into his ear. Adam swooned at the tender kisses his sex partner was trailing down his neck. He shook off the pleasurable feelings and pulled out of the embrace to confront the slightly older man kissing him.
Tell me you didn't fire Bradley.
He scolded him, who was still engaging his semi-naked body in foreplay.
Your precious princess failed to turn up to work and broke protocol by not calling in, so I fired him.
Deacon Jansen, you're an idiot.
Adam pulled out of the man's muscly arms and rose from the bed they had messed up to dress.
Bradley says he's been hired by Adrian Masters.
Right, like a CEO would personally hire a grunt worker.
Deacon smirked. His hands were reeling Adam back into his embrace by the waist. Adam slapped the smug expression from Deacon's chisel face. He was livid.
Just the opportunity you were waiting for, wasn't it? Bradley was untouchable before this.
Adam pushed Deacon off him, grabbed his keys and jacket on the table and chair by the bedroom door, and stormed out of the man's house for his car parked out the front. The hot night air warmed his flushed cheeks. It made him curse from the burning sensation to his palms when he gripped his steering wheel. He started up his black Celica sports car and let it hum as he faced himself in the rear vision mirror. Ever since middle school, He had no shortage of interest and abuse from males because of his girly looks and gay preferences. Not like he wanted to be a girl, but he felt aroused from certain types of men than he did from the sight of women. Bradley was the first guy he ever felt love for. It both scared and excited him. Abrupt flashing drew his eyes to his smartphone. A job alert flashed on his screen. Fate had a funny way of catching his attention. A weak smile played on his lips as he pulled out his car and drove down the street, taking the route out of Sydney's eastern suburbs for the west. Deacon groaned when he heard his front door slam to a close and the sounds of a car revving up and driving off. He shuffled off the bed that he and Adam had been rolling about earlier and picked up his pants from the floor, fishing about his pockets for his phone. He flipped through his contact list and dialed the number for his boss, who was the co-founder of MyCom IT. Deacon. His name came through his phone's receiver.
Charles, we either have a potential problem or a golden opportunity,
Deacon said, and briefed his boss on Bradley's encounter with Adrian Masters. Is that so? Charles's firm voice mused. What is the reason for this call again?
Knowing Adam. He will act impulsively for that, Bradley. I suspect your nephew will force his way into a position of that company soon.
Deacon dangled bait before the man. Is that so? Charles said again. Deacon could tell he had caught the man's interest. He outlined his plan that could instantly earn their company a stronger position in the marketplace, whilst wipe out T-Strike from the competition, depending on whether their competitor would hire Adam. I leave it to you. I need not remind you that our reputation to our shareholders comes first. Charles ended the call.
Yeah, you don't need to tell me that.
Deacon confirmed to a long drawn-out dial tone. The idea of Adam jumping ship for T-Strike made his blood boil. He knew that man's heart pined for that mousy git Bradley, and was content to have his body. This T-Strike business was a threat to his hold on Adam. He was determined to damage Bradley and reap a benefit simultaneously.
I didn't bully that guy because of Adam. If only I fired him sooner.
He hissed through clenched teeth. He calmed himself down with a cold shower to separate his mind from the earlier sex with Adam. When he was refreshed, dressed and able to focus, he went to his office in the next room, turned on his laptop and company access, and began to act on his plans. Meanwhile, Adam had arrived at Bradley's apartment block. Fortunately, the place had secure parking to protect his car from the riffraff that came out of the train station, which was walking distance from the place. He hurried up the stairs to the first-floor balcony and pressed the intercom doorbell box on the outer door that guarded the way to his friend's floor. Yeah. A teenage voice apathetically asked.
It's Adam.
Adam almost cussed his name, ticked off by Jace's tone. Right. The teenager ended the intercom's call. The floor's door unlocked to allow him in. Adam. You didn't have to come all this way. Bradley eagerly greeted him at the entrance door. Adam barged inside the apartment as Bradley closed the door behind him. He pulled the man into a hug.
Yeah, I did.
Adam squeezed his hug tighter around the man.
You don't turn up to work. Don't let anyone know where you are. Then tell me that you've been in hospital after hitting your head and some rich guy scammed you to work for him for free.
Bradley wiggled out of Adam's hug. I wasn't scammed. Adam entered their small lounge room, where Jace was on the sofa watching Kuroko no Basket reruns on their family television. He dumped himself down next to Jace, ignoring the boy's complaints.
This is what I gather. You banged something hard, making you unconscious, so the man tells you that you damaged his expensive car, flashes you a mock invoice showing a ridiculous repair bill, and asks for your body as payment. Meaning, you get to work for him for peanuts.
Adam fired off at Bradley, putting his friend in an awkward spot. Wait. That happened. Jace gasped. Well, yeah, I guess. Bradley nervously scratched his head.
And you couldn't call me because...
Adam frowned. My phone broke. Bradley directed Adam's attention to the dismantled phone on their round dining table near the lounge. Adam slapped a palm to his forehead with a groan.
Seriously, man, you're going to make my heart stop one day.
Mine too. I can't believe Big Bro got scammed. Jace let out a groan and expression to match Adam's. He straightened up when noted he had copied him inadvertently. You don't need to worry about him. I'm his family. I've got his back. He bluntly reacted to Adam's worry. Adam faced Jace with a scowl.
No offense, but you're a kid. Focus on your books.
Old farts say that. He argued back. Adam slung some more clever words that stirred up an argument between them. Hey, time out. Bradley shouted to draw their attention to him. Don't fight. Jace rolled his eyes and turned his attention back to the television.
Honestly, Brad, you better hope that they were legit. If they turn out to be the Mafia.
Adam gulped.
Let's just say I don't want my best friend to end up as a news story on the project.
You're exaggerating. Like I would. Well, they seem legit. At least the sports car was, I think. Bradley mumbled, feeling shaken. Sensing this, Adam stood and pulled Bradley down on the sofa next to his brother.
You've eaten?
He asked, or more to say, demanded an answer from Bradley. No, was still thinking on it.
Leave it to me.
Adam smiled at the brothers and invaded their kitchen cupboards and fridge for ingredients to make a meal. I'm sorry, Jace. Bradley buried his face in his hands. Dude, if this is actually for a real job, it might end up a good thing. I'm pissed that you didn't tell me about the headbang scam, and don't want me to take on extra shifts. Jace G'd up his brother. Bradley sat upright and faced him with a stubborn frown. I'll fix this. I'll make sure you never have to work. I'll take your word on it then, big bro. Jace sighed and cocked a lopsided smile. He had carefully watched his brother's school life from the sidelines. Many times he had seen and almost jumped in on attacks aimed at his big brother, to watch them miraculously become nothing. Bullies moved on uninterested, girls ignored him, and teachers couldn't care less about his achievements. So, he decided to be the one person his brother could lean on after their parents' passing. At least until a worthy partner showed to take over. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Adam working the kitchen familiarly like a wife. But not this loose man. He thought aloud. Sorry, you say something? Bradley innocently asked. Nah, just mumbling, Jace answered, and decided to change the topic to Kuroko no Basket episodes they both liked. Adam spent the night at Bradley's, with the excuse that he was keeping an eye out for Mafia patrols around the area. Whitetown, where Bradley lived, was known to have a few patrols from the Camdona gang lurking about the area, especially around the train station. It was just that man's luck to attract the interest of a crime boss. He prayed that it really was Adrian Masters, who Bradley had encountered. And the job was legit. It was a better option than what they were all fearing.
If he was Adrian Masters, that CEO is a worry.
Adam spoke to the dirt patch on Bradley's bedroom ceiling, which was illuminated by the glowing streetlights and moonlight streaming through the window pane. He laid next to his friend, who was snoring peacefully. They slept in the same bed, but there was no way he would lay a hand on his princess other than give him a cuddle. Of course, sharing a bed with the man he loved meant he rarely slept a wink. The perk he received was watching the man's sleeping face and being able to say good morning to him when he woke. He used his insomnia time to analyze Bradley's situation. His impression of Adrian was abysmal. Extorting a harmless guy was something a CEO shouldn't be doing. The thought stirred an urge to go to the media. He dropped the idea, thinking it would hurt Bradley the most if that were to happen. Adrian had money to buy his way out of a legal case and deflect the matter. The best thing he could do was research the situation and be near Bradley. This meant winning a job in T-Strike, and being a project manager meant he had a high chance. His mind replayed over the job ad he had seen for the company. Eventually, his eyes closed to sleep. The next morning was a frenzy of getting ready and eating fast to be on the go. Hey, Adam. What happens if my brother falls in love with someone else? You're still gonna be his friend, support him and shit? Jace flat out asked Adam, causing the man to pour his scrambled eggs on the kitchen bench then the plate. A million thoughts and explanations raced through his mind at Jace's profound insight. The baby brother was definitely more aware of people.
Yeah.
Adam answered in the end. Do your best. Jace slapped Adam's back and went to clean up the egg mess. What the hell was that? Did Jace just give him his approval? They never saw eye to eye because of Bradley, but did this mean the boy was going to be more friendly to him from now on? He shook his head clear from the unlikely thought and continued with his breakfast. Jace was headed for the front door to leave when the door's intercom box crackled to life. He heard a woman's voice speak into it, asking for his brother. Who would be asking? Jace soberly questioned the woman, a dreaded feeling swirling about his stomach.
Angela Parker from T-Strike. I am Adrian Masters' personal assistant sent to escort Mr. James to our headquarters.
The woman answered professionally, with a posh voice that triggered the warning hairs on Jace's nape. He hesitated.
What's wrong, Jace? Weren't you heading out?
Adam innocently asked, and yelped when Jace yanked him away from the intercom. It's them for big bro, he whispered and nodded at Adam's expression of realization on his face.
Man or woman?
Adam asked. Woman, Jace answered. Not good. They sent a woman who would be hard for Bradley to turn down. What's going on? Bradley asked and turned to the buzzing intercom box. No, don't. Both Jace and Adam called out to try to stop Bradley from answering it. They were too late. Yes. Bradley innocently asked into the intercom box.
Mr. James. I'm Angela Parker from T-Strike, here to escort you to our headquarters.
The woman's voice was curt with obvious impatience. Bradley retracted his finger. His face paled. Big bro. You could escape through the fire exit, Jace suggested. Bradley sighed. He turned around and gave his brother and best friend a firm hug. Some things I won't be able to run from, he bravely answered them. One moment. He returned to the intercom, then gathered some things he would typically use for the workday, smoothed down his cheap business suit, and left the unit. His eyes widened at the beautiful woman in a black dress suit he had left waiting on his floor's cold stairwell. Sorry for the wait. He gingerly apologized to her.
So you should be. 20 minutes I've been standing on this step, Mr. James.
Angela lectured the man. Bradley let out a nervous sigh as he followed the woman to the parked black sedan he had seen in Yakuza movies, and began praying internally to God for mercy. He wasn't religious, but decided the day was the perfect time to convert and praise Jesus.
Mr. James.
Angela gestured to the open passenger door at the back. Bradley gulped when he carefully entered the back seat and yelped as the door closed behind him.
You're not going to cause trouble for me, are you, Mr. James?
Angela said over her shoulder when she entered the driver's seat. Bradley nodded, feeling it was better to find out what was going on and hope for the best. Seemingly satisfied with his answer, she started up the car and drove away from his haven. Bradley felt confused and nervous when he saw the car skillfully maneuver through the heavy traffic of familiar CBD streets near the Harbor Bridge to reach a gigantic mirrored skyscraper with the T-Strike Company logo on the front of the building, and as a display on the stairs leading up to a rotating glass entrance. His heart raced when the car turned into an underground car park of the building and eventually parked next to a set of elevators in a spot marked, reserved for CEO. He really was extorted by the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. Why? Wasn't that a bad move to make, considering he could have gone to the media with the situation? Bradley frowned, thinking more about the idea, and realized he would probably cause more trouble for himself if he did, since he had seen those shows about how evil reporters could ruin people's lives. That man had money to cover up scandals, so had no problem scamming him. Why scam a poor nobody like himself? What was this CEO after?
Out,
Angela ordered him when she turned off the engine. Her stern voice was scary. His hand trembled when he gingerly opened the door. He nervously followed the woman's firm strides to the elevator, making sure they had lots of space between themselves when they rode one to a numbered floor.
You will be escorted at all times, even to the bathroom, until you are granted your security badge.
The scary woman informed him, before they exited the elevator doors that dinged to an open. His eyes were assaulted by blaring fluorescent lights, reflected against tempered frosted glass walls of sky blue. He followed the woman's lead, blinking madly to adjust to the lights. Gay. He involuntarily cursed when he accidentally bumped her back. He gulped at her glare directed at him.
Touch nothing,
She warned him. Bradley prayed this day would be over soon. His fear became paramount when he saw many workers slumped over their desks, unconscious. He hoped it was due to some weird OH&S nap policy. Well, what's those people doing? He nervously pointed to a team of workers fiercely moving their fingers about their keyboards at their desks. Their eyes were fixed to the monitors before them. They were working like robots.
Don't point. It's rude.
Angela berated Bradley. He dropped his finger. Thoughts of being held by the Mafia surfaced in his mind. Maybe he should have called Adam first before he had tried to escape from the hospital room at that time. No, he would feel bad if his only friend was hurt because of his problems. They continued down the hallway and did a left turn to reach a tempered white glass wall at the end. Angela pulled the large metal handle on the wall towards her to open a door.
912 Angie. Not like you.
Adrian smirked when he saw her step inside his office.
Tisk. I had some unforeseen issues.
She glared at Bradley, who was hesitating around the office's threshold.
Welcome Bradley James to T-Strike.
Adrian warmly greeted the man, picturing a trembling mouse on his doorstep. Bradley braved a few steps inside. Angela teased again, before turning around and leaving them to be alone in the office. He flinched at the abrupt slam she had given the door, so it trembled on its hinges. Hinges. Maybe he did damage the man's car if this man was T-Strike's CEO. A CEO wouldn't lie about such a thing to extort a little Aussie battler, right? Sir, I'm just an analyst. I don't know what. Bradley fumbled for an excuse.
Shush. Your rambling is annoying.
Adrian blatantly stated to shut Bradley up. This only ensured Bradley's annoyance and something of his wrath. Honestly, are you really the CEO of this company? You're not scamming me, are you? He snapped back. Adrian burst with laughter at the man's change of attitude. So, the little mouse transformed into a wild cat on certain triggers. He was intrigued.
And are you going to tell the media about it?
He cockily asked the man, and chuckled at the man's evasive expression. It seems he had already thought about it, which was an obvious choice to consider. Are you going to hold me a prisoner, like all the other people on this floor? Bradley answered with a question.
Prisoner. I don't hold anyone prisoner here. That would be criminal.
Adrian said with a sober voice once his laughter had calmed.
Everyone is here because they applied for a job and got it.
Then why am I forced to be here? Bradley glanced about the impressive office. His eyes glowed at the sight of the Sydney Opera House, clearly visible from the enormous window behind Adrian's desk. It was positioned perfectly like a painting on a sunny day, with clear blue skies, and sunlight reflected on calm waters like twinkling stars. He had only seen this kind of office view on television. His old job was near Town Hall's World Square, so this iconic view was nowhere to be seen. Whoa! How cool is this view of the Opera House? His voice perked up when he rushed to the window and pressed his nose to the glass, so he could look down to see all the moving pedestrians like ants scurrying about the paved footpaths of Hickerson Road.
Of course my office has to be near an iconic landmark.
Adrian's voice brought Bradley back to his situation. He stared at the handsome man standing next to him, taking note of his latest version Samsung watch, the same Lucky Dice cufflinks he had seen the first time around, a light pink business shirt with a conservative gray tie, complemented with a navy pinstripe suit and shiny black loafers. He was the image of a CEO, not too flashy, but flashy enough to be a corporate statement. A wistful expression behind the man's dark almond eyes caused Bradley's frown to relax. I don't have to pay off your car damages, right? Bradley hoped. Adrian sighed.
If I said no, will you still do what I ask?
Bradley's eyes widened with obvious, shining hope. Please let this be the case. Adrian chuckled and explained what he wanted from Bradley, which made all the Mafia thoughts in the man's head fade away. Instead, he felt both annoyed and excited by Adrian's explanation. Annoyed by the fact that the man wasn't upfront with his proposition. He supposed many CEOs were like this by default. I have your word that I don't owe you anything for the car, Bradley demanded. Adrian gestured to a set of papers laid out on his desk. They were contract papers with Bradley's name printed on the headers, and in various places where the terms employee and contractor were noted. Under a section called Terms of Employment Exclusion was a comment: this employee is not held accountable for any vehicle or property damage to CEO or company assets before this agreement. Compensation will be paid to the said employee for health and well-being to the amount of 2 weeks in lieu of service at an annual salary of $55,000. What? Bradley blurted, shocked by the sudden turn of luck. His eyes lingered on the compensation will be paid bit.
Did I say I was part of the Mafia?
Adrian smiled at Bradley's reaction, finding the man adorable indeed.
I'm sure Mafia bosses aren't willing to let damages of their assets go, let alone compensate the person who caused the damage.
Bradley frowned and flashed the man a dubious look. This isn't another clever way to lock me into another scam, right? Adrian burst with laughter that made tears form from the corner of his eyes.
I've never met anyone so interesting.
Obviously, you've never been around real people. Bradley brushed off his frown. That fembot you sent to pick me up, I wouldn't call human. He trembled thinking of that beautiful but terrifying woman. This reaction perked up Adrian's spirits. The man was a pleasant and cute surprise. He somehow felt at ease around him and hoped he would sign the contract.
So what do you say? I will pay you a salary of $60 per hour net, plus 9% superannuation and company bonuses. I believe this is almost double your last annual salary.
Adrian scooped up the contract and offered it to Bradley.
Your decision. If you decline, I will only pay you for your troubles involving my car. I'm hoping for your employment. You could really make a difference for my company. I'd go as far as to say, you can take it to the next level.
Bradley felt his earlier fears subside. Did this man really see such potential from him at their first meeting? It almost seemed that fate was placing him in an advantageous situation, and their weird way of meeting had been something of a test. If you believe in me that much, how can I say no? Bradley firmly answered with a gulp at the end. He accepted the contract and pen Adrian handed over to him. I don't want to be one of those zombies at a desk you have out there. He threw in his last-minute condition before signing.
You won't. I guarantee it.
Adrian reassured him. Bradley sighed and signed his name on the dotted line. A few minutes later, the fembot woman arrived to take the papers away for processing. Adrian escorted him out of the office to introduce him to key staff on his floor. Bradley followed his new CEO through a twisted path between zombie desks. No one glanced to acknowledge his existence. Workers kept punching in data that was outputting alphanumeric combinations on spreadsheets, documents, or data processing flowcharts he was more than familiar with from his last job.
Bradley James.
A man cheerfully called out to him across the sea of deadpan desks. Bradley flinched, startled by the man's voice that interrupted the mad tap-tap and clicking from robotic keyboarding. Adrian stifled his chuckle as he led Bradley to his right-hand man on the other side of the floor.
This bright and cheerful blonde man is Simon Waterhouse, my design director.
Adrian introduced Bradley to the man. Bradley's eyes were transfixed on the man's impressive Dangerfield smart casual combo of red-black plaid golf pants, lace-up boots, navy blue short-sleeved butterfly collar shirt, and light gray tie. His gaze moved to the gaping hole in the man's left earlobe.
It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Simon greeted Bradley with over-eager handshaking that jiggled the man's arm up and down. So much so that Bradley felt Simon's gold rings on his long fingers digging into his skin. He sighed when the man pulled his hand away.
Come, come, I will show you our playground.
Simon threw a welcoming arm around Bradley's shoulders and forced his walk in a certain direction. Bradley gulped nervously when paranoid thoughts resurfaced in his mind. He wasn't keen on the man's over-friendliness, but went with the flow. He entered a console room that reminded him of one of the computer communication rooms back at his old job, but of a larger scale. 2 rectangular server towers ran from the floor to ceiling at the center of the room. Coming out of rows of flashing green sockets of flat metal boxes that were stacked up on the tower shelves were an assortment of computer cables and leads, which trailed all about the white floors and walls. The cables fed power or data into the rows of Apple Mac computers on tempered glass benches.
Now, my pretty, if you could sit right there, that will be great.
Simon led Bradley to a stool before a wall-sized green backdrop. He relieved the baffled man from his bag and other loose belongings and sat him down on a stool. Bradley glanced about the room, confused. He recalled these walls were called green screens. Was he going to be a character in a movie?
Bradley. This is Bruce Chen, our lead AI developer.
Simon proudly introduced another man of their age. Unlike Simon's semi-hipster fashion statement, this man was dressed in a cheap business shirt and black slacks. He wasn't bad-looking either, with features accentuating a blend of Asian European, but he wasn't as handsome and slick as Adrian. Adrian was attractive? Bradley brushed the thought aside.
Bruce is my precious genius.
He added with an exaggerated flourish that made Bruce blush and heaved with a sigh. Ignore this, Poppy. Bruce aloofly brushed off Simon's praises. The alluring look both men gave each other made Bradley feel awkward, like he was getting in between their flirting. Okay. Bradley found his voice. He soon suffered their poking and prodding of his face with sticker things connected to wires, and hoped he wasn't being used as a fancy lie detector or radical electric shock therapy guinea pig.
Now all you have to do is sit still and move when and where we tell you.
Simon instructed Bradley with a cheesy toothpaste smile that didn't reassure Bradley's concerns at all. Nevertheless, he sat through the grueling AI modeling session until his backside was almost numb. Before he had realized it, a full workday had reached an end and night was high in the sky. I didn't even notice, Bradley mumbled to himself when he stepped out to embrace the cool night breeze on the building's front steps. His gaze lingered on the T-Strike logo, glowing red and white on the building's surface. It was the first time that he took a proper look at the straight arrow piecing through a curved shield. The design was straight to the point, but he felt an evasiveness to it. He figured it was the shield's curve that hinted at a target, appearing more than what it seemed.
So how was it?
He heard from behind and turned to face T-Strike's CEO. Do all CEOs have this much free time? Don't you need to be at some expensive convention, shaking hands and kissing babies? He blurted out a bit of cheek, then instantly apologized. Sorry, I get like this when I'm exhausted.
I understand.
Adrian nodded and grabbed his arm. Hang on. Quit pulling me. Bradley weakly protested and failed. He found himself standing before the red sports car he had allegedly damaged. The pricey vehicle looked shiny, new, and not damaged. He stared at Adrian with accusation.
It was fixed like magic.
Adrian joked and sighed when he realized it had fallen on deaf ears.
Get in.
Why? Bradley's frown deepened. He yelped when Adrian lightly decopened the middle of his forehead.
You'll gain permanent wrinkles if you keep frowning like that.
Adrian smoothly answered with a gentle smile. Bradley dropped his frown, doing his best to ignore his rapid heartbeats. There was no way he was falling for this man's charm. At least he was determined not to. Yet he still obeyed and went to sit in the back seat.
Am I a chauffeur?
Adrian smirked and gestured to the front passenger seat. Bradley groaned and moved to the front seat. His eyes danced around the fancy dashboard that was way beyond the necessities a car should have. At the heart of the sleek black console was the latest Android tablet, fully loaded with games and roaming internet. Adrian pushed out the panel underneath and slotted his phone on the glowing blue shelf. Bradley yelped when the car spoke with a sexy AI female voice. "Welcome, Adrian. T-Phone XS Max now charging. Maya at 30% battery, the poor dear is starving. I will make sure it receives a lot of love and well-deserved nourishment. Please find something tasty for dinner too, Adrian. Take care of your magnificent body," said the sexy AI voice.
Thank you, Erica.
Adrian responded as if the voice belonged to a person. He pushed the shelf back in, changing the tablet screen to that of his phone. Bradley looked at him weirdly, not sure whether to feel creeped out by the fact that the CEO's woman was potentially AI Erica. Perchance you're not a closet otaku?" he mumbled.
What is that?
Adrian asked, perplexed. "Never mind." Bradley sighed away his questions and focused on the rest of the car's interior, feeling many emotions at once that were stirring nervous twitches to his legs.
Relax, Bradley. I promise, Erica will not hurt you again.
Adrian smoothly reassured him. "Erica?" Bradley chortled, holding back his smirk at the funny idea of the car being the man's woman. The engine hummed to life. Adrian skillfully pulled out the car from the curb and zoomed off down the road. The car moved along to the guidance of the semi-glaring streetlights of the M2 motorway, with the intention to connect to the highway that would lead to Bradley's home. But Adrian had taken a wrong exit and became lost. So, he decided to take a scenic tour course to the leafier areas of the western suburbs, which had a newly built townhouse complex and villages on old farm estates. The drive along these roads was smooth and relaxing. Car Erica eventually arrived at a lookout on a hill, which showed a sea of twinkling houses and streetlights like colorful stars on a night sky. Adrian parked the car in the lookout's parking lot that had a clear scenic view. Bradley instinctively stepped out to bask in the twinkling glory of the suburban lights. He relished the soothing cool night breeze and the scent of wet grass and flowers. "Ah, now this is a sight." He blissfully greeted the view, stretching out his arms like he was about to embrace it. Adrian smiled warmly at the man's perked-up expression, thinking it was cute. It was only their second day knowing each other, but he felt so at ease around Bradley, like they had been friends for years. The feeling made his heart race at a rate he hadn't felt in a long time. The last person who had made his heart beat this fast had decided her career was more important than their relationship. "Hey, Adrian. I can call you Adrian, right?" Bradley awkwardly asked with a deep blush that made his expression appear maidenly. The breeze's gentle tease of Bradley's fringe about his forehead caused Adrian's heart to skip a beat. Hearing his name spoken cordially from the man's mouth felt reassuring.
Sure. I'll call you Bradley.
Adrian stoically answered. Thanks for today and now. Gotta be honest, I thought you were a mafia boss, kind of shady what you did." Bradley chuckled at the past that was now a funny story in his memory banks.
I need to thank you for not spilling out our less ethical meeting to the media.
Adrian replied and sighed.
To be honest, I was a desperate man when I propositioned you that way.
Bradley peered into Adrian's eyes for the truth. His heart raced at the calm and almost vulnerable expression he glimpsed. He had seen eyes like those win women's hearts in movies. "You're a wealthy businessman of a successful corporation. Why would you be desperate?" Bradley's voice felt robotic at his comment.
Success is a fleeting measure, Bradley. The trend today is old tomorrow. A human was at risk of being an expensive failure to launch. You have given it a chance. I can't allow more people to be redundant due to the loss of shareholders.
Adrian soberly explained his reasons. "I see." Bradley ended his part of the conversation. He wrapped his arms around himself, feeling the cold suddenly. He cursed when he realized his jacket was back in the car. Adrian sighed. He removed his suit jacket and draped it around Bradley's shoulders to keep him warm. Bradley cursed his pounding heart and heated blushes to his cheeks. What the hell was going on here? Thanks, he awkwardly thanked the man, looking into his eyes. Time seemed to go still around them, as their eyes were locked on each other, with lingering thoughts and feelings, stirring heart flutters, and pleasurable swirling sensations about their stomachs. Incoming phone call from Charles Thornton. Answer or hang up. Car. Erica's voice broke through the moment. Adrian hurried to the car and provided the commands for the inbound call to go to voicemail.
I think I should get you home,
he declared. Bradley entered the passenger seat and provided some new instructions to Erica's GPS navigator that would take him home. The ride back was filled with awkward silence.